Hi, my name is Brooke and this is That New Teacher. I am a middle school history teacher in California. Let's dive in. Before we really dive into the strategies, let's start with the mindset, because one thing I have started to figure out, I'm going into my 5th year of teaching, so I'm not that new teacher anymore. Maybe you are. So before we really dig into the strategies, let's start with the mindset, because as I'm going into my 5th year of teaching now, I'm starting to realize that classroom management is an ever-evolving thing. Things that worked in my 1st year did not work in my 4th year. And things that I did in my 4th year, I could have never pulled off in my 1st year. So as we go into these classroom management strategies, keep an open mind in the fact that you never really fully have classroom management figured out. Some of the extremely effective veteran teachers I see are always evolving and changing their strategies throughout their journey of teaching. So our strategy number 1 is to have clear expectations and boundaries in your classroom. Each classroom is going to have its own individual structure to it, and the way that that structure is developed can also be individualized. So some teachers have their rules, they establish their rules. This is my classroom. These are the way that we function in my classroom. I am the adult in the room, and I feel like I have the insight to help you as students have the most effective learning experience. And that's okay. Establish those clear boundaries, set them forth, and work together as a class to achieve those goals. Other teachers like to involve their students in the decision-making process, and they come up with social contracts to develop their rules. No matter which way you go about establishing your rules, make sure that they are clear, they are easy to understand. We all want to know what's expected of us, right? Like, I never want to walk into a situation and have someone be like, nah, don't do that. What did I do? What did I do wrong? Don't do that. We can't do that. We're not doing that. Right? And you're kind of just like, ooh, like you start walking on eggshells. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. Or maybe sometimes I'm allowed to do that and sometimes I'm not allowed to do that. And it gets really confusing. If you are very clear in communicating your expectations, then it's very clear when students are not meeting those expectations. I suggest posting these rules in a visible place in your classroom so that we can always reference back to that poster when things are kind of getting out of line and be like, oh, are we meeting expectation number 4? Ooh, but we decided as a class that was important for a good learning environment, right? So maybe we need to get some things back on track. Having them posted in a clear space allows you to reference back to them in moments of need. All right, so ask yourself, do I have clear boundaries? Do I have clear expectations? And how can I involve students in developing those expectations and boundaries? Strategy number 2, use positive reinforcement. These do not have to be physical items of value, though those are sometimes helpful. But in my classroom, I really do not give out prizes. The only time you get a prize in my class is if you win a review game. Otherwise, I'm not just handing out prizes for good behavior. But positive reinforcement can look like positive praise, reinforcing verbally, hey, you're on the right track, you're doing the right thing, I like the way you're thinking, I like the way that you're sharing, oh, I like the way, I like the way, I like the way. We hear that a lot as teachers if we are positively reinforcing our students. If you're one of my students, I'm giving away one of my secrets here, but if you're one of my students and you're watching a teacher tip video, you're awesome. So, but I write out these post-it notes with different types of positive affirmations, and then when I see a student doing that thing, I can already have that post-it note in the middle of my teaching and just put it on their desk. I don't say anything. I don't even have to look at them. I can just walk by and put it right on their Chromebook, a little tiny, with just those tiny miniature post-it notes, you know, with a little positive thing. I've seen kids take these and put them in their binder, and I see them weeks later, months later, still in their binder, reminding themselves of when they were doing what was right, and maybe nobody else noticed, but my teacher did notice. So not everything has to be tickets and a treasure box and this whole elaborate thing. As long as you're consistently uplifting your students when they're doing what's right, that's kind of positive reinforcement that I use in my classroom and maybe will work for you too. Whatever type of reinforcement strategy you use, make sure you are celebrating our students' achievements and reinforcing that type of behavior you want to see every day in your classroom. To strategy number 3, implement a consistent behavior management system. This is the one for me that has shifted for every single year of my career. So my first year of teaching, I used these behavior reflection sheets, and they actually worked really well for me, except for I would say one class, they were probably ineffective. But for 5 out of my 6 classes, they were an extremely effective way to reflect on behavior. I actually have these behavior reflection sheets available on my Teachers Pay Teachers. Now in my 4th year, I feel like my classroom management strategy relies heavily on trust and building the trust with students and saying, hey, you know I have your best interest at mind, and yet we're having a hard time here. So can you trust that I'm trying to do what's best for you and all the students around you, and kind of working on that basis of trust that I try to establish in the beginning of the school year. And we kind of operate more on the trust factor than I do on those kind of other physical strategies of, you know, tickets or positive reinforcements, things like that. Whatever strategy you implement, just keep it consistent, because the students, they know, and they want to know. They want to know, hey, when I walk into this class, I better be in dress code. I gotta take my hood off. This is not the class for that. They know where they can be a little more loud. And like in my class, when I'm teaching, I used to say, raise your hand to speak when I am teaching. But now I feel like I enjoy the back and forth kind of conversations of teaching where students just pop out a question while I'm teaching, as long as they're doing it in a respectful way. And so consistently, they know they can just ask a question in my class without really feeling like they're interrupting me. If we are inconsistent in our behavior management system, if one day this behavior gets you a demerit and the next day it does not get you a demerit, then we cause confusion and mistrust in our classroom. But if they walk in the classroom and they know they didn't bring their textbook, they're going to get written up for being unprepared for class, and that's just how it goes every single time in Miss Rogers' class, then they're going to walk in with clarity and understanding and know that even if they disagree with my rules, at least I am consistent in enforcing them. But let's be really clear. You're allowed to change your mind. A school year is a long time. And again, sometimes what you did last year doesn't work this year. And as a teacher, you're allowed to say, hey guys, I'm looking at what's happening and this isn't working. So let's try this new strategy. We're gonna try it for 2 weeks and see how it goes, and explain it really clearly. And so you're allowed to pivot. You're allowed to change your mind. Don't feel like you're locked into something when you say it has to be consistent. Don't feel like you're locked into the exact strategy that you've been using at the beginning of the year. You're allowed to change your mind and shift your thinking and shift your strategies throughout the year, as long as you stay consistent when you're doing it. Strategy number 4 is to incorporate group activities and engaging work. One thing I have noticed as a history teacher, it's easy to lean in on those PowerPoint presentations, take the notes, give the lesson, do the assignment, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. But I noticed that when I use more engaging activities or group work, some of those negative classroom behaviors go down. Some of that attention-seeking behavior goes down, because they're able to work together and connect with people, and they're allowed to talk more freely and laugh and then get back on track and make a joke and then get back on track with their work. So incorporating these other different activities can help students know that I don't always have to sit like this in class and listen to the teacher for 45 minutes straight and not say a word. They know that eventually they'll get their chance to shine, and they'll get their chance to kind of get up and move around. Incorporating different types of learning allows students to feel more at home and be themselves, and not feel like, hey, if I don't ever pop off in class, I'm never gonna get the chance, right? So envision your own classroom. How are some ways that you can make something just a little bit more engaging? Maybe you can foster some group work, which allows that teamwork dynamic to continue to grow in your classroom. As teachers, you have the opportunity to inspire a love for learning, to foster these critical thinking skills, develop interpersonal skills in your students. By watching this video, I know you are a teacher who wants to create an environment where your students can thrive. So be sure to subscribe, and I will do my best to equip you on your journey to becoming an amazing educator. See you in the next one.